Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. We're also on YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a podcasting coach because I've got further podcasts. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. My guest today, possibility coach, transformational speaker, founder of Why You to Shine, and of course a podcaster, but also a best-selling author. Please welcome Victoria. Is it Rader or Rader?
It's Rader, but
Rader.
if it's Rader, it's fine too. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So you might let the listeners know. I mean, I've mentioned obviously the main things, but you might let them know a little bit more about Victoria. Who's Victoria?
Yeah, I like how you said the main things. So for me, the main things are, I'm a child of God or a spiritual divine being that is having a ton of fun in this physical reality. As a wife, a mother of two incredible humans, and a mother to three furry things, and that are here with me, my three dogs and my beautiful little cat who is currently at home. An avid tennis player, an avid reader, and somebody who just enjoys life fully. And I think as a result of that, all the professional achievements, businesses, and there's just expenditures of the fact that no matter how hard, there is just always something that I tend to enjoy daily.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I mean, I know you've got a load of apps and everything, and I've put them on my phone and they're very professional, but I'd like to kind of go back a few layers and kind of your own journey, how you got into all this.
I like to mention that you and I chatted just before that I was born in the former Soviet Union. I was born in Ukraine when it was still part of the Soviet Union, and when the absence of choice was very much a present reality for us daily. And the absence of external freedom is really an incredible gift if you are keen on developing your internal freedom. And that's where I found myself. I found out that even though I couldn't choose which classes to take in school or which person to vote for, because I was given one name and two boxes, yes and no. And if you chose no, you were not unnoticed or unpunished. And so while there were truly no external capacities, I mean, you couldn't choose what to wear to school. You had a uniform, right? When I say everything has been solved for you, everything was solved for you. You had a stamp in your passport, which city, not country even, which city to live in. Your passport stamped you into a geographic location. And so when you are born and grow in a society that does that, then the only way to survive is to retrieve to your inner world. It's the only way to remain human. And for me, the inner world has become an incredible place to visit. I often say that before I ever stood on the Great Wall of China, or before I ever walked the Taj Mahal, I've seen them in my mind 10, 15 years prior to it happening, before it could ever have been possible. And so knowing in my life from the very early age that what you truly perceive and receive and dream of and see as possible, and what you try to then move towards through daily intentions makes it probable. And that's the path of becoming eventually and branding a possibility coaching, because I truly, truly, truly believe that while things can be highly improbable, there's really nothing that's impossible.
Excellent. You mentioned about the uniform. I mean, I went to school in the 70s and it's like we had to wear a school uniform as well. And if you look at the elections now anywhere in the world, yeah, you get to choose the left or the right, but it's the same bird, and it's like it's all controlled. So I think, sometimes we think it's a lot better on in the West, but I think, yeah, now we have to be kind of a bit creative, and I think inner wisdom and knowledge, and not to be kind of fair-mongered into what's going on.
I love your observation because I think that the concept of freedom has been a little bit misconstrued, because I used an example of a highly totalitarian society where you have no rights, you have only duties and obligations. And now we're looking at a different extreme of where everybody thinks they have a right. but no duties, no obligations. And that it is not freedom. That's, that's anarchy. So the world is going into anarchy and choosing the governments that are thriving through anarchy. And so if all of us took a responsibility for freedoms we have, so if when you scream, I have a right, I always tell people, what duty is your right being guaranteed by? What are you doing that guarantees that particular right? Otherwise, if you're demanding somebody does it, then you're totalitarian. If you're demanding that, it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah. And I think that's how we'll actually get change, because I'm kind of looking at sovereignty and I'm playing with it. I've seen a lot of the corruption. That's how my other podcast is called The Awakening, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions, because there's a lot of things out there kind of saying all the negative stuff, but it's like, so what do we do? And one of the things is sovereignty. And I mean, there's times I've stood up the police to judges, and now I have a lot of battles with the city, and I see that they back down, and which is strange because most people think, oh, they've got power over you, but it's actually the other way around. They're to serve us. And
public servants.
Exactly. But people kind of tend to bow and buckle. And when you buckle, they can see it. So you don't buckle. You kind of let them know I stand in my own 2 feet. I know I'm speaking truth.
Roy, and something that like I had chills through my body when you said that is sovereignty, like knowing who we are as sovereign beings. And the fact that your podcast is called Awakening, I cannot tell you how many times the other podcast I've had a conversation with spiritual gurus that are talking of enlightenment, and it's my field. I love it. But denial and delusion are not enlightenment. When you walk into the room that is full of stuff and is dark and you turn the light on, what the light does, it doesn't wash things out and makes it all better. It brings into clean, pure view everything that is there. But it also gives you a path through it, right? The light and enlightenment brings you capacity to move through anything with much greater ability. And that to me is a process of awakening. You're bringing light into everything without being overwhelmed by it, without blaming it or complaining that it's in your way, but empowering you to move through it. Yeah.
And I know we mentioned prior to talking about the chat GPT, and I think it's kind of relevant to kind of continue on here, because what I've learned is like I got shadow banned, I got kicked off YouTube, I got kicked off a load of different things because obviously they don't like what I'm doing. Linktree, I mean, I don't know anybody else who's got kicked off Linktree. I got kicked off 3 of the things from Linktree. LinkedIn removed me for over a week, and I saw numbers going backwards on my YouTube. I saw thumbs up being removed. It was actually a friend of mine kind of realized that on Facebook, and now 3,000 or something so-called friends on Facebook and no interaction, which prior you'd see a load. So, and what I've learned is I started using Brave, but also, and I kind of tell people why we've got a lot of people thinking differently. It's a lot is down to the question you ask. So most people will say, is 5G safe? Everything they'll see on their search will actually show why it's safe, instead of saying, why is it not safe? And then you'd see other stuff. So hence, the way the algorithms work is they'll keep pushing the stuff on your belief system. So then it reinforces what you believe. So that's why you've got, conflict in families, in cousins and everything because of this kind of thing. And with the chat, because it's something that I've seen in the last few days. One of the podcasts that I listened to, he's an Irish guy. He's very famous, blind guy. He wears a plastic bag so nobody knows who he is. So he likes to, that he can go into a supermarket without people, coming up to him. And he asked about the snails. He had heard something. Were snails, did the leprechauns turn into snails? And the chat GPT said yes. And so he was delighted, and he started researching this, and he couldn't find anything. And he went back and said, where's the information? And GPT said it made it up, which
I love it.
So it's like, and there's people think that whatever that says, it's like the media or the news, that it's true. And we have to be very careful. And there's another guy done a report saying the dark side of it. And he was talking about how to make a bomb. And it just said, oh, we don't do this. But then he said he's a different person. He's Dan. And he started being Dan. And ChatGPT gave its answer. And then it gave its answer as Dan. So there's a way of bypassing the system. But the fear is that people will write into this and they have trust in it and they start believing everything it says. And do we know who's created it? I mean, I see Microsoft are backing it, which doesn't really give me much confidence with what I see they've done over the years. So I'm just curious your take on that. And I know you mentioned about spirituality with that, so I'd love to hear about that as well.
Well, you've led into it with precisely the point I've been making over 2 decades for formation of subconscious, how it creates our reality, and now how it washes it into the AI. And what I mean by that, you've said, it answers the question that you ask. This is the crux of creation as such. When you look at either Bible, Quran, or at Eastern teachings or the New Age, there is one simple concept that is misconstrued all the time, and that is ask and you shall receive. So there's been lists sent to the universe with couches and chairs, and moves with a lot of disappointment that only half of them happens, because that concept does not say ask for things. Although it's dumbed down enough, yes, it'll work actually. But the questions that we ask do shape our reality, period. And the Greek philosophers knew it best. They said that the answer to every question is the question that has been asked. And we can see that all the poles are shifted that way. And I'm gonna probably butcher the quote, but Einstein said, if you give me an hour to solve any problem, I will spend 55 minutes on thinking of what is the right question to ask about the problem. Because if I know the right question to ask, it'll take me only 5 minutes to solve any problem. And so, I'm very passionate about people internally monitoring the questions they're asking, because if you're asking all day what's wrong with your spouse, you're going to get an answer. And if you're going to be asking, like, I loved what you said, awakening, if you're asking what's wrong with our society, you're going to get an answer. But if you're asking, what can I do to shift what's wrong in our society for something better, you're going to get an answer, solutions. And so ChatGPT polishes that, what I believe is a divine capacity to shape reality. It polishes it. Whatever you ask, it answers. However you ask, it validates. And so it either will support your delusion, your denial, or it'll support your dreams. It has capacity to support your dreams if you ask questions in a productive way. I'll give you a very simple example. I have 7 books published, 4 solos, 2 journals, 2 anthologies, 2 more anthologies are coming out. They're all international bestsellers. They were done with different publishers. I'm very grateful to each and every one of my publishers. I had traditional, had anthologies, had all these publishers. But I'm a little bit of should I say it, like a complete control freak when it comes to quality control. I like things done with excellence, not perfection. It's unattainable, but with excellence. So finally, I said, okay, my team and I are going behind every edition where we're doing everything. That's not healthy. We're paying a huge amount of money and then we go after it. And so we're launching a publishing company that's called Possibility Publishing. And I have all these brilliant ideas of how it's going to be different and this and that and the other. And so I'm going to give you an example. I'm very passionate about overcoming addiction. And so I was pondering, meditating on the topic ideas for the title for that book. And then during the meditation, a very clear knowing came in with the keywords to put into ChatGPT to get 100 title ideas. I got up, I acted immediately. Out of those 100 ideas, based on the keywords that I gave, I reshuffled until I had the chills through my body, which to me is a response that I'm on the right track, and created the title, which is called The Sober Soul: Struggles, Successes, and Subconscious Shifts for Overcoming Addiction. And I have this structure for it, right? And I've done this now with 10 titles. We're not even, we're launching in a week. But so to me, I have a dream. I see a problem. I know I have capacity to solve it. I want to make it globalized. I want to attract people. I want to attract co-authors who have walked the path of addiction, so their voices are heard. And now I have a structure to do it. And so what would have taken me prior weeks and months of pondering now took me 3 minutes. So it buys back my time, which gives me more energy to create. That's just an incredible tool, because I don't look at time, energy, and money as 3 resources. It's all energy managed or mismanaged. So,
no, excellent. And I mean, you mentioned the books, so you might just kind of touch on a few of them. I mean, what's your recent one, and what was the reason for changing publishers as well? I'm just curious about that, because I know just from talking on the speaking podcast and a few of the meditations as well, there's a lot of authors. Some people are self-publishing, others use publishers, and it's kind of, I know that sometimes they don't give a great percentage and they expect you to do the marketing, but perhaps there's different publishers, some do it properly.
I could give you the logical answer that'll make perfect sense, and I can give you the honest, authentic answer. I created Possibility Publishing because that inner knowing told me to do that. And once my intuition told me to do that, which is one of the 6 mental faculties that create reality, right? There is perception, intuition, imagination, intuition, reason, memory, and will. So once my intuition told me do this, my reason kicked in and said, and here are the 100 reasons why you're doing it. But listing those probably would not be an authentic answer. Everything I've done over the 2 decades has been coming from the inner guidance. And 9 out of 10 times in full vulnerability, I have no idea why, until months and sometimes years later. But also know when I don't follow that inner guidance, which I could write many books on how I pretended I didn't hear the voice, how I ignored the voice and lost $70,000. When I say I follow the inner guidance, I'm not a butterfly that flutters from flower to flower. I am a rhino that has ignored it so many times that I'm out of walls through which I'm to walk. I've gotten all the walls down, and so the voice is getting through very beautifully. But for me, it is the capacity to do what others are telling me is impossible to do. So many people, and if somebody is an aspiring author, first of all, find me. We can probably help you. But what I find is that there is this unrealistic dream that the book will bring prosperity, and it is a dream that can become true, if you sell 1 million copies. But what the book does, any book, it is a glorified business card that gives you a platform for your message, right? That is what it is for books, number 1. Number 2, it is a way for you to do what I believe is your sacred duty, to be the voice for at least one person out there who is waiting for your voice. I believe there is a story in air. If you're breathing, there's a story in you, and you have come to share that story with someone. So I'm very passionate about that, because no matter what I say, it's going to fall on some deaf ears, because the frequency of my voice and my message is not intended for someone. But when somebody else says very similar message in different words, it'll open their heart. And it's true of all of us. So that would be why I want to do the anthologies that are tied by one theme. And when I talked to several other publishers, they said, well, no, it's cacophony of authors and different chapters. And so I said, no, I will find a way where we can be one in the book as individual, free, expressing souls, and yet have one message. So when the person reads the book, we take them on one journey and not on hiccups of, ego expressions. And then I became enlightened. We're not going to do that.
And Just on that as well, for a lot of people, I think it's something like 90% of people, they don't even sell 100 books because they get a kind of reality check. And it's very like podcasting, because I hear so many people complaining, they create the podcast and, they lose heart. They think, they listen to the likes of Joe Rogan getting 10 million an episode or 50 million, and they're kind of, and all I say to them is, if you're in a room and there's 20 people turn up, would you be happy? Would you come up the next week and speak to them again? Of course you would. But because you look at 20 on a download or whatever it is, and they lose faith. And it's the same with a book. I mean, as you mentioned, the right part, sometimes your message could resonate with somebody. They could read 100 books, and it's just the way that you've the words, just the right timing. And I believe kind of that's everything kind of comes into place like that.
I had one of my probably most humbling and empowering moments in my life was about a decade ago. My brother and I had a business. One of the businesses we had was providing physical and mental spiritual training to luxury buildings in DC, in Washington, DC, in the US. So what we had was a license to come to these buildings. They had gyms, so they had little auditoriums, and we would provide them with personal trainers or with programs. And they've booked me to do a program on reducing stress. And there were 50 people that were signed up. And so I prepared, as I've mentioned before, excellent. And drive myself crazy, not just others. So I've prepared an amazing seminar for stress release, and we showed up, and the time of the seminar came. There was nobody, and then 10 minutes into what I thought would have been the seminar, one lady came who was not the sober soul at the moment. I'm just going to say it that way. And she sat there right in front, of me, and I stood there and I thought, okay. And at this point, I get to really meet myself and see whether I believe everything I teach. Can I deliver this seminar to this semi-coherent person the way I would deliver it to the 5,000 or has delivered it from stage to 5,000? Do I have what it takes? Do I understand that in front of me is a puzzle piece to all of the universe? Do I remember who she is? And it still is, and probably forever will be, the greatest seminar I've done. I've poured all I had into that space. An incredible thing is when you understand that your voice has a key to one person's heart, it really does open the universe of opportunities for you. And if you're running after numbers, you're losing your soul. I mean, you're after the wrong thing.
Oh, excellent. And you mentioned it kind of in the real estate with your brother, but like I've read that you were in the top 1%. And do you put that down to a mindset, or because you want excellence all the time? Because I mean, obviously I've seen it with the apps and everything. It's just beautiful. I mean, the things that I see that you do it properly. You don't just kind of, I'll be grand. That doesn't work. So like the fact that you got into the top 1%, do you put it down to mindset, or what do you put that down to?
Fantastic question, because it's a big part of the journey. Real estate is an interesting thing for me in my life, because yes, to mindset, but more so to love, right? Because so what happened is I was homeschooling my little kids, same thing, following in our guidance, And so my daughter was about 7, my son was 4, and I had this brilliant idea to take them to Greece to study Greece for 3 weeks. So I packed my 2 little kids and my mom, and we went without virtually any reservations to travel through Greece. I came home with incredible memories and dedication that, yes, this is the way I'm going to teach my children. My sweet husband sat me down and he said, now, love, I don't know how it's done in Ukraine, but here in the US, nothing is attached to the little plastic card you've been swiping. So you have now officially introduced our family to debt. I'm like, oh, really? I mean, I was 20 when I got married, I'm 25, 27 at a time. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a concept of money. There wasn't a concept of money in communism. I mean, just there's cash. If you're out of it, you're out of it. So, so I literally go on Google and I put in, this is 2000, end of 2006. I put in, what is the fastest way to make money in the US while staying home with kids? That was my Google search, okay? Not a perfect question. But the Google spits back and says real estate. I'm like, I turned to my husband and said, that's great. I'm going to go sell real estate. He's like, you're what? So I do. I go to get a license. It takes me a while because I'm homeschooling kids. He travels a lot. So at that point, I'm teaching statistics a couple hours a week. I'm teaching Russian, Ukrainian couple of hours a week. So I'm a little bit busy. Okay. I get my license. By the end of 2007, I enter the forces of real estate to experience the greatest real estate crash since 1939 in America. So in 2008, I get my first listing. I put my house on the market and I do statistics. I'm really great at math. I understand the market. So I put it on at, I believe, a perfect statistical price with variance up and down to sell within a week. Like I do the analysis. The house sits a month, at 2. I see prices dropping. I have no idea what's happening. I'm a new agent. And one thing that I tell every agent who ever went into the market is I communicate with my seller. A lot of agents and a lot of professionals, when things go rotten, they stop talking to their clients. That's when your clients need you to talk to them, not when things are great. They can see that, feel it on their own. So I talk to my client daily. I'm clueless. I'm new. I'm clueless. You've trusted me. We're going to figure it out. And finally, within 6 months of this collapsing market, by then I see the pace at which the market is going. And before, by then it goes down 9%, before it drops down 30, 40, 50% in our area, we sell it we supersede the pace of the drop. And it took great faith on her part, only because she could see. I would send her daily reports of what was happening in the county, in the city, in the state. That was my one client. She was a neighbor in a cul-de-sac. She was somebody I came and begged. And then while I was doing that, she told her 4 other friends who had to sell. Now, I haven't sold the house yet, but if it sells, it won't be because of the market. My agent's going to sell it. So I built a business 100% by referral, where, in the next 4 years, I do one thing. I had a little title that said, we sell more because we serve more, where I have one reason to do what I'm doing. Yes, money is the afterthought. And yes, I looked for something to make money. But the seeds of money, who was it? That's not my phrase that is coming through me. In Thou Shalt Prosper book, Rabbi Levin says that the seeds of money is service. The seeds of money is service. So mindset, yes, but it's not mindset for quote unquote prosperity. It is a mindset for prosperity through the seeds of service. So with the books, the Prosper Me book, the most recent book that I wrote, 35 Universal Laws of Making Money Work for You, the law of service is one of those laws. So I think that especially now, as the world is going through recession and demoralization at a great pace, we are lacking service. So if you want to prosper in any industry you're right now, you put a person first and you serve them relentlessly with the quality of your product. And so, yeah, when I found out I was the top 1%, it was wonderful, but it was highly relevant, not for my family, but highly relevant for the doors that could open it, because now I could get on stages and do training, because people said, oh, she must know what she's doing. But nobody wants to hear the truth or the secret to success, which is serve relentlessly and continually grow. So another law, the law of growth, is mindset multiplied by skill set multiplied by effort equals results. If you're a person of faith, if you multiply the left side by God, the results become infinite. But it's mindset, skill set, and effort. And for a lot of people, they're mindset addicts. For a lot of people, they're skill set addicts. And a lot of people are effort addicts. Once you maximized one of the 3 within your capacity, see where the other 2 are. For me right now, I'm learning skill set of marketing. It's at complete 0. Why? Because in real estate, I have done everything by referral. In what I'm doing now, referring a $39 app that is, after the break, is about $1.90, is not the same pace as referring $1 million house or $300,000 house. So my skill set in marketing is lacking. I'm aware of it, and I'm going to learn it.
Brilliant, brilliant. And you mentioned about homeschooling your kids, because like my youngest child, my eldest, she's 23, she's a teacher, but my youngest, he's 9. And we send him to, he's going to a school that's copying the Finnish system, which is very free, no homework, no kind of tests as such as, and on my awakening, we've exposed the corruption in the education system. So not sure what your kind of reasoning behind it, but I think, like, I'd love to know, did it help in all the things that you're doing? Because I think when you're really close to your children, because sometimes, unfortunately, people, when they pass their kids over to the school, they don't even know who their kids' best friends are. They don't know what they've done. And they just, it's like a babysitting service. And then they just come back and then they just chug through life. Whereas when you're spending a lot of time with your children, you're more engaged, and I think you've way more input into their thought process and making them a better person.
You know, Roy, I can tell you this, that okay, see, I'm so excited about it. I could barely get it out of my mouth, but I'm going to share something with you that I haven't publicly shared. And I do a lot of interviews, and I feel that maybe somebody will hear it and can steal this dream and run with it, or support the dream. And that is, I work with thousands and thousands of adults, and I help them shift their mindset and heal their hearts so they can better their life. But the answer to me, to the problem of our society, is the children, and is the education of our children. I'm not saying it's too late for adults. It never is too late. But it is like helping grown-ups is addressing the symptoms. I've gotten really good at addressing the symptoms of society. But what's very clear to me is that if we're to heal our beautiful, struggling humanity, we've got to start with children, and we've got to start with education. So these both companies, You to Shine and Possibility Publishing, are laying the foundation for what I truly believe is my dream and calling in life, which is revolutionizing the global education with Millennium Schools. And what I see from Millennium Schools is that the first year of primary education, children are taught those 6 mental faculties that I mentioned that create their reality. They're taught how to be perceptive, how to be imaginative, how to keep imagination, how to be intuitive, what reason does, what memory does, not in those words, in primary kid language, that they're taught how to work with money, that they're taught how to grow a tomato, that they're taught how to serve, they're taught life both spiritually and practically. And that those, then from the foundation of that life, we add other subjects to support them. Why? Because our education is built on information, and the information is outdated commodity now. We're just months away from polishing the AI to not be misleading, but to be analyzing and delivering volumes of historic information, maybe years away. We're walking into the age of transformation, where information will have to be seeped through, researched through, not through the outside resources, because we will exhaust ourselves, but through the inner resourcefulness, where we get to be the humans we've come to be. And so the dream is that for the affluent areas of the world where the schools are privately owned and are a high commodity, the payments for each one of those schools provides the funding for 2, 3, 10, depending on the region of the world, charity sister schools that have the same program of empowering, expanding, and growing our children, but that are done at that point as the charter schools supported by private funding from the functional expensive schools. And that once a year, or 2 to 3 weeks to a month, a child is going through the exchange program, where you pick up a kid from Manhattan and you put him into Ghana for 3 weeks. Their education is not jeopardized, but they're learning something that cannot be taught by anything other than experience of compassion. So that is the big underlying thing. And why possibility publishing is another thing. So many children are told they have special needs because they're not visual learners. They don't read, they hear. We have no auditory textbooks. What? So one of the things we'll do, all the books will be auditory. So that's a topic near and dear to my heart. And this is where I say people hold their dreams back. Mine is open. If you've got money, people, steal it, then hire me to do it right for you. That's it. Yeah.
Because I mean, like I've seen that with the education, it's all about memory to kind of put you into a corporation, and they just steal people's dreams and on this. Like they remove arts, they remove music. Yeah. So that's fantastic to be pushing that. Like, it's beautiful. So with the apps, because I know that I put, I think two of the apps. One of your apps was free, and the other is like $2 or $3. But it's like positive affirmations. You've the mini meditations, which you've graciously given me a few so that I put on after, the following episodes. But like, what was your kind of thinking behind that? And the quality is fantastic, because sometimes you look at an app, but it is really nice the way you go through it. Very easy to navigate, beautiful graphics.
Yeah, every product, every book we've ever written, or app that the team and I've created was there to meet our needs first and foremost. That's the answer to everything we've created, because I know if I need it and I can't find it, somebody else like me is out there. And that is, my days are full, and I love meditating, and I love sometimes having 40 minutes to myself or an hour, but most days I do not have that. And I found the capacity of the brain to go deep within just 3 minutes if it is guided. So we've created these guided meditations that, through the empowering language and your linguistic structures, take you in a meditative state within 3 minutes while rewiring your neural receptors in your brain to start perceiving the reality from a different angle. The Empower-Me app that has those mini meditations, we will continually be adding to it. One of the modalities that I've developed was Free Me EFT, which is based on a gorgeous technique of releasing the trauma or the stress or the pain through emotional freedom techniques. But then we take it just a little bit further to bring a little bit more additional peace and affirmation. And so we will be adding these 3 to 5 minute negative emotion releases. So when a person feels anger, that they have in their phone capacity to release that feeling, if they feel grief and so forth. So that's the app is continually changing, because gratefully we have wonderful clients that are giving us feedback, and and I'm very open to feedback, because what I think is a great idea is a great idea for me, and it's very helpful to have a loving client say, yeah, I mean, this was good. However, so we're very open to feedback, but the app, the Empower-Me app, is growing, and eventually we're going to take the Master-Me app and put it into the Empower-Me app, so that those affirmations you've mentioned, there are 52 personal philosophy. I believe our soul comes into this world to master sets of virtues so that we can start working with the universal laws and create reality for a better world. And so the affirmations are actually organized through 52 virtues. They're 52 weeks. And as you affirm, they're more than affirmations, they're energy activations, because the way they've been created, there's been an energy charge sent to it. And I tell people, I don't understand truly why we're still as a society getting freaked out when we hear the word energy. It's like, oh, it's woo-woo. I'm like, no, it's actually physics. The proton, the neutron, and the electrons flying around it, that's not woo-woo. That's like physics. So we are energy. So with Empower-Me, little m stands for who we are as mortal matter that manifests materially. And the capital E stands for who we are as eternal energy, that essence that expands. And for me, the journey of this lifetime is to surrender my mortal to eternal, my matter to energy, my material to my essential, and my manifesting to my expansiveness. And that's my daily focus, because if I'm in my mortal matter, I'm freaked out, I'm terrified, and I'm afraid either of punishing God or of punishing AI. The system of being terrified is the same. I'm just going to find who to be afraid of. But if I'm in a place of empowerment, I'm going to shift out of fear into creating reality I would rather have into solution-based mind. So I call it the faith-based mind. But however we name those concepts, so empower-me empowers you to remember who you are. I love the word sovereignty that you've said, to stand in your sovereignty. Truly, that's what it empowers you to do.
Excellent. And you mentioned Einstein, and I think it was Einstein was talking about quantum physics. And like what I tell people is, like, even talking to a plant, they have tests proven. And on the awakening, I was talking about frequencies recently and just about water. There was a Japanese guy, I forget his name, he passed, but he basically was freezing the water and different frequencies going through it, and you can see how it is. So like, words have such an important thing in life. And to
Masaru Emoto.
yeah. I should actually dig it out, because I know I have his book, like, and just looking at it now, like, wow, you know, it's amazing. But there's also like the Spooky 2 device, which is basically you can take somebody's nail and you can heal them through that, and they could be across the pond. And like, that's proven. So, you know, no matter what your belief system is, as you say, the science, I mean, that we've been bamboozled with the science, trust the science, which we can, but there is real science there as well that we know and we can see, and just the power of words. So, you know, to have all them beautiful words, because sometimes you wake up and you just, you know, not every day you jump out of bed and you start dancing, you know, there's the odd day that, so yeah, there's a few curveballs. And just something like that, to read something positive, can actually change your mindset, and then you start getting back on track. And before you know it, you forgot about what was the thing that actually threw you off.
Absolutely. And you know, having worked with affirmations, and the suggestion I would say is that find the bridge of the affirmation to bridge out of where you actually are to where you potentially can be. Because what happens for a lot of people, they're turned off by affirmations because they're affirming, you know, oh, I'm a money magnet. And deep inside of them, the little voice says, no, you're a lunatic. And what we're hearing, listening, and creating is the little voice that says you're delusional. And so I call them the bridge affirmation. And the reason I say, okay, I'm a possibility coach, why is that? Because maybe right now you're very chronically ill and you truly believe it's impossible to be healthy. Affirming I'm healthy will sound like a lie. And we affirm the emotion that comes with words, not necessarily the words. And so, but bridging to the question, what if it was possible for me to get better? Find the bridge. I'm chronically ill. I can't move. I'm sick. What if it was possible for me to get better? What if it was possible for me to feel better for 1 second? Do you believe you can feel better for 1 second? Yeah. Do you believe that you could feel better for just 1 minute? Okay, fine. I'm with it. What if we take that minute, make it 3? And so we build the neural pathways in your brain to all of a sudden say, I had a client friend and a client who 15 years ago was on a deathbed from stage 4 advanced horrific cancer. So they took him through the surgery, and they told him after the surgery, you know, if you make it the first hour, your chances of survival, you know, first hour of being awakened, your chances of survival triple. And he said, I knew that I couldn't make it for an hour, but I also knew that I could make it for a minute. And so a minute after minute after minute after minute, he made that first hour. And 5 years later, he climbed Mount Everest. And so this is all it's about. Affirm something that is authentically possible for you to believe in. And when you believe in it fully, shift it to the next possibility. You know what, I can be whole for the next 5 minutes. I'm whole for 5 minutes. I'm whole for 5 minutes. I'm powerful. And the all-time powerful affirmation that comes from Charles Haanel book, I do not know, the master key, I do not know where the original resource is, but he quotes it as the ancient affirmation. It's one of my personal favorites because it applies to everything. And that is, I'm whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. When you build yourself up through those bridging beliefs, well, I'm not loving, but is it possible for me to be loving to my dog for the next 5 minutes? Wow, I can be loving. I'm not a happy person, but so once you build yourself up to be able to say that, I can tell you it is the simplest and yet the most healing and empowering affirmation that I've been inspired by. So
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. And I know that you've got your own podcast all about the voice. So you might let people, I think it might be more now, but last time I was looking, it was like 40 episodes that you.
yeah, so about the voice, it's funny that we talked about the voice. I'm sitting, this is we released that season, I think it was 2020? I'm not sure. So I'm sitting in my driveway at Social Security Administration and here in the United States, because after 7 years of being a US citizen, my Social Security announced that I'm not. So I'm like, well, I need to reconcile this little detail. I mean, I would like to actually correct the wrong here. So I'm sitting in the parking lot and I'm looking at the interviews I'm scheduled and I'm like, oh wow, I should probably just do a little less with I love to share, like you can tell I'm passionate about sharing my message. I'm like, well, and all of a sudden that's the same voice that we talked about that comes in and says, you should have your own podcast and do at least one season. And I'm like, I don't have time for it. My first reaction, always, Whoopi Goldberg from The Ghost, I'm not gonna do it, as I'm walking to do it. So I'm like, fine, but what is it gonna be about? I have so many topics. And there's like this internal pause, and there's like, the humorous approach of really, it's all gonna be all about the voice. So I've recorded the one season of All About the Voice podcast, which empowers through these wonderful interviews that had capacity to access people that have listened to their inner voice and how it transitioned their life from either a complete turmoil to triumph or from sheer survival to stability, which is sometimes more than enough. And so that was the message of the podcast. And I've been asked, are you going to come back to it? Or is it going to be the only single standing season? I can honestly tell you, I have no answer to that question. But when I do, when my business partner, the still small voice, the great overall designer, God within, when I have that answer, I will be glad to announce. So it is neither no nor yes, but what is out there has an incredible guidance. And I'm just amazed to watch how, the message trickles. And 2, 3 years after it's been recorded, somebody somewhere is discovering the power of their voice.
Yeah, that's what I love about podcasts is kind of once it's out there, once you leave it on a platform, it just keeps chugging away. It's not that the first week and people listen to it. I mean, I've got some, and there's more on the first episode of, say, the Polish one than the newer ones, and it just keeps going away. It keeps chugging away, and it's fantastic to know that your message reaches a person, and I believe they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
excellent. So listen, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And I know you touched on learning about the marketing. So it's just something that I've been asking people always on the speaking podcast, but I started to do it on the meditation one as well, is because I think we're bombarded with social media. What do you feel kind of serves it? Did you feel like what's best for you in the minefield of being on 50 different things? Because I don't think anybody really likes it. It's a time suck when we're trying to, maximize our time and do the most impact in life.
I think what I'm coming to understand is that people buy into who we are before they buy into anything that we offer. And so, especially in personal development, area where I am. And so I think my focus of learning about marketing, I truly thought, oh, I've got to learn about how to market every one of these million things we've done. And how would I possibly do it? And it's an overwhelm. And and then the ego jumps in and it's going to save so many lives. And then I sit the ego down and I'm like, it's okay. It's your life that is on the, it's just internal conversation. And then all of a sudden I understand that people are brilliant. If they trust what I have to share with them, they can find everything else. And that same inner voice that guided me to create any product, it's going to guide them to the right product for them. So I've taken a big chill pill with my exhausted plan of marketing every single product. And I'm going to restructure and release, with time, very short, very poignant clips and videos of who I am, what I do it, why I do it, and how I can help. And then allow for people that are attracted to that message, find out more, right? I will never be a person who masters the sales language and gets you to buy something you shouldn't have. That's just not my style.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listen, Victoria, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. You might let people know how they can get in contact with you.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, and I'm sure you'll put the link at Vika, VICA _Rader. But if you go to manifestmiracles.me, you will find a 2-hour free masterclass. And when it's free, I mean it. This full information masterclass with no sales in it that I've poured 2 decades of energy work, personal development work, and coaching on empowering you to harmonize your mental faculties so that you can create a mindset to create miracles. And it's manifestmiracles.me.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent. So I'll make sure I'll put all the links and I know they're in your website, the apps, but I'll put them as well. Just make it easier for people along with your podcast as well, because all the information is fantastic. So I put it in the audio video. Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
So that's all for the meditation podcast. You'll find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube. Find the links in the podcast description. My 4 other podcasts, along with the coaching, bio.link/podcaster. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and make sure you give Victoria's podcast a 5-star rating. And if you've bought her book, give her a 5-star rating and a nice review. It all helps so that more people get to see it. Until next week, take care.